Hello everyone, thank you for joining me here on this another episode of Vegan Police TV. This episode is inspired by two of the recent clips that Aizul Mazad has put out about racism within the animal advocacy movement. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. Now, for those of you who don't know or who came in late, Aizul Mazad, Abbas Liciel, hopefully I've pronounced that right, made two clips about someone that I don't know who they are, portraying them as a white supremacist and talking about racism and racist attitudes and things like that. Now, the difficulty with that, or the thing about that, is that Aizul didn't go far enough. A majority of the animal advocacy movement has racist views, racist beliefs, and that's how they, the certain animal groups, that's how they get their funding, by appealing to the racist side of, the white donors. A couple of cases in point. You have a look at Australia with the live export campaigns. They're well-known campaigns in Australia and possibly overseas by Animals Australia and I believe a couple of the different animal liberation groups. Now, the thing with that though is that they are talking about the way our cattle are killed overseas, and the thing is that the way the cattle are killed overseas isn't really that different to how they're killed here. Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, there aren't many slaughterhouses where they throw the sheep in the back of the boot and drive around in the car and drive them to the slaughterhouse and things like that. So we do have regulation exempt, so that's pre-captive bolt stunning or stunning before slaughter. There are last check, it's a couple of years old now, there were 16 slaughterhouses in Australia that had a legal exemption from that, and not only for halal slaughter, for kosher slaughter as well. And this is the thing too, is that there's a big song and dance made about halal slaughter, and because obviously it's related to the religion of Islam, yet there's nothing mentioned about kosher slaughter, because that's a completely different religion that seems to be off limits for everything. So you have a look at it, is that these groups profit by doing their campaigns appealing to the racist nature of the general population. And all you have to do is have a look at the number of people that turned out at the protests, because they don't want our animals killed in a third world Muslim country or a second world Muslim country. They don't want our animals killed that way, because we're a Christian country. We pre-stun our animals and all that sort of stuff, so we kill them in a more acceptable manner. Well, that's a big load of BS. There's no money for animals in it for Animals Australia to go campaigning through the slaughterhouses in Australia and saying, hey, listen, these 16 slaughterhouses that are potentially responsible for, let's say they kill about 500 animals a day. That's what, 6,000 animals a day going through there. So, that's a fair chunk. Pardon me. That are being killed that way. And it's not only cattle as well. There's goats are killed through halal slaughter. The cattle obviously are. And it's the thing is that there's no money for Animals Australia to be made by campaigning against these things here. And it's the other thing too, is that that if we're questioning our standards, then we can't claim the moral responsibility. We can't claim the moral high ground, which is what we collectively do when we campaign against live export. We're saying that we're better here, and we'd rather kill our animal. We'd rather kill our animals here by our standards, rather than sending them somewhere else to kill them by their standards. So, that's the whole, racist in nature of that. And the whole ban live export campaigns are huge money spinners for these organisations. The other thing where racism is rampant is when all people, yeah, it's racism as well, and especially within the socioeconomic boundaries within Australia. Is that when they turn around and say, "Oh, going vegan is easy. Going vegan is this." It's easy to go vegan. All you have to do is just make up the mind and make up your decision and go for it. And yeah, so there's no mention of the food deserts. There was one. Gary Francione, his followers are notorious for doing that. They throw in ableist language, they throw in sexist language, they throw in racist language, they're full of verbal violence. They just do everything that they can to claim this is what veganism stands for on one hand, and yet by the other, the very next breath is that they're conducting, those practices themselves. So, case in point, Elizabeth Collins, who's one of the moderators of the Francione page, she's also, I think she does the New Zealand Vegan podcast or website or something like that. Anyway, she's over there in New Zealand. One person turned around and said, on a discussion on food deserts, turned around and said that their local store, all they stocked was tomatoes, lettuce, some white bread and something pizzas or something like that. There was not an abundance of fresh fruit available, and the food that was available was extremely expensive. So of course, the wonderful Elizabeth Collins Sandran says that if she was in that situation, that she'd be living on iceberg lettuce, tomato and iceberg lettuce sandwich, and she'd be eating a lot of pizza. Well, really, that has to be one of the most arrogant and daftest comments I've heard in my life. I mean, yeah, it'll be fine for you once, or maybe twice. You might even last 2 days living on a tomato and lettuce sandwiches. Would you do it for more than 2 days? Possibly not. You'd end up just going, you would get such an aversion to that food that you would potentially not want to eat it again. And and this is the thing, is that for them to turn around and say, "Oh, but we'd do this." Well, hey, hang on. What if you've got kids? Yeah, it's fine for an adult to suffer through it and force himself to eat tomato and lettuce sandwich. Have you tried giving a child the same meal two nights in a row or 2 days in a row, let alone the same meal 2 meals in a row? You're not going to have a snowball's chance in Hades of doing that. So, and this is the thing, and just as a little comment for that, is that, here we are, Swayze, the unnatural vegan, picking on Saoirse Morava about being one of the worst vegans on YouTube. Well, hang on. Gary Francione, every comment he makes is bad for veganism. Tobias Leonhardt, as I've said before, every comment he makes is bad for veganism. He doesn't even promote veganism, he promotes reducitarianism. And yet, because for some reason, Swayze tends to worship everything that he says and retweets and says he's this and that and everything else. Well, and the other thing too, John Sackars. I mean, have a look at how bad they are for veganism. So, anyway, pardon me, going off on another one of my little tangents and rants. So he's talking about this whole racism thing. Well, there's racism everywhere in animal advocacy. It's just that it seems to be that that's the only way these animal groups can get money, is by, painting themselves as that, because we're a first world, predominantly white Christian country, is that we're better than everyone else with regards to the way that we do things. So, one person having a rant on Facebook making, racist white supremacist comments, that's no big deal. I would be targeting every friggin' animal organisation that, especially the ones in Australia, that's what they thrive on. There's so anyway, that's my rant for now. Could fly off another tangent on that, but I don't want this to be another half-hour video. So anyway, thank you for watching. This was another episode of Vegan Please TV. I look forward to having you join me on the next episode. All right, thank you and bye for now.